Well, it's been a long time, huh? This is Derek from the Everything's a Spring podcast, coming to you solo. Uh, Mostly because I have had a hard time recording with Jim for multiple reasons. Jim's very busy with Whiskey Grail, his company. And me personally, I've had a hard time, as we've said, recording because our regime is falling. Regime being the United States. The last episode we recorded was pretty popular. I don't think that's not true. The last episode we recorded was not popular at all. The Titan Submersible one was pretty popular, but I digress. I guess the reason I press record today, I'll just get down to it, is to follow up on the Oops All Fucked episode of Everything's a Spring. It was a re-upload of an episode me and Jim did right before the election. Honestly, my favorite episode of Everything's a Spring, I think arguably the one where I spoke the most. I bet if you threw into AI and calculated the amount of words I spoke versus Jim in every episode, that's probably the most Derek you get per minute, per episode, bar none. Just because it's the one I've so far known the most about. We've not recorded any of the scripts I've written for the biology-based episodes. Definitely want to get to those, but personally, I do not feel comfortable sitting in front of a mic and recording anything about engineering until we talk about the elephant in the room, which is the fascism. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. If you haven't listened to Oops All Fucked, it is literally episode 18 of Everything's a Spring. If you can still find it, it's probably out there somewhere, but I think for the most part it's been removed because we've re-uploaded it. And when I first recorded that episode, it got 86 views after a year, right? And then just after, I think about a month now, after the re-upload, it's gotten at least 1,000, I think, so far. So I guess it's one of those situations where I guess we said the right thing, but maybe at the wrong time, huh? So that it's a weird feeling for that to have aged so well. The weirdest thing is that almost everything we said as far as predictions for the next year almost came true. Like, down to them coming after our rights, coming after women's rights, marginalizing brown and trans people, down, like, even the weird one-offs like Putin invading. I know it's probably too soon to say Putin invaded anything but Ukraine, but the fact that he's flying, aircrafts over any kind of aircraft, armed or not armed, over Estonia, Latvia, any NATO country is highly irregular. And I think that is a prerequisite for things to come. The fact that the United States is actively doing military action in the Caribbean and in Venezuela, I just think that episode aged so chef's kiss, just so good. And I just have to talk about it. I made a website for Everything's a Spring, everythingsaspring.com. And honestly, I made it just because of the democracy page, because I really just wanted a place that wasn't on social media for me to, I don't know, just have a place to bitch, I guess. And when I say everything's a spring, even politics. So while I have my little crash out, we're just going to have to be okay with Derek having a slight deviation from the mean, so to speak. Like, don't get me wrong, like, Jim's company is fully engineering. I'm actively building an aircraft. Like, I am 3D printing on some ASA Aero from Bamboo Labs. I finally got the material characteristics dialed in. Building a couple of drones. Hopefully, as my budget allows, as a hobby, I'm hoping to build a little fleet of them for my own ISR capabilities. I did go to the No Kings protest on the 18th of October. I'm just gonna read a little bit of my of the article that I wrote, because honestly, it's a good indication of why I'm recording today. So, floundering for 5 minutes, I'm just going to go ahead and read that. So, screw concerned, I'm pissed. I've taken care of my granddad for like 2 years now. He's a U.S. Air Force vet, Korea. He's 91 years old. I moved in with him after he fell. I've given up a good portion of my freedom in life to make ends meet. And since then, I've been on countless VA or Medicare phone calls, meetings, in person or on the phone. And I've received so many fucking rejection letters from the local to federal level. It is literally infuriating. Like, I almost gave up. Like, not in like a dramatic way, but I gave up on asking for help. I know that's not healthy, but can you really blame me? Like, it gets to the point where it's like, I gotta do it myself because no help is coming. And like, I'm wasting energy trying. But I know, like, I digress. The only time I had hope was around last Thanksgiving, like Thanksgiving of 2024. I received a letter from the VA, actually, that my granddad qualified for all sorts of in-home care benefits. Like, they would bring nurses in the home, so like we wouldn't have to go to the doctors as much because, traveling with him was very difficult. I only have a small sedan, and you guys heard about my Porsche. Regretting that purchase now, in hindsight. I paid it off, but he can't fit in it. Probably should have brought an SUV in hindsight. My fault for trying to live a little. But yeah, we got a letter that he qualified for all this good shit, and things kind of looked bright for a minute, like right at the end of the Biden administration, and I was cautiously optimistic. And I gotta put a real big asterisk there. The only reason we got any of that, the only reason we even got a letter was because this absolute saint of a social worker happened to have a personal connection to someone in Washington, D.C. in the VA. And they took the time and effort to make a couple of calls and have someone actually look at our case, because apparently it had just been pushed to the wayside in the Atlanta VA. And they actually got things pushed along and showed that, yes, my granddad did qualify for all this stuff. He just didn't have the eyes on him to get the care he needed. And it's sad that that's what it took. Like, this personal intervention and this personal, like, under the table deal with someone that just happens to know someone. But before anything was even finalized, January comes around, because this started in Thanksgiving. Old long con Donald Trump gets elected, old long con Don. And all of a sudden, all the VA appointments start getting canceled, and the phone numbers that we'd used for fucking 18 months have a fucking dead dial tone. And early as February, I started noticing this. Like, early as February, I started noticing a few of the things that had worked in limited fashion, at least in our family situation, stopped working. And this was February 2025. Now, this is my family's personal experience, so I cannot speak on any other people's families, but just from, friends of families and just folks that have been willing to speak out to me via LinkedIn or other social media, I know for sure things have gotten worse since February. And I know for a fact someone out there in America has it way worse than I do. Because I just got to think about it. My granddad's 91 years old. I'm personally 27. Like, I have a job, thank goodness, company redacted, I should probably say. And sure enough, they have been very nice to let me, adjust my work hours so that I can take care of a 91-year-old ambulatory blind man while working my ass off. I would argue more than 40 hours a week. Sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes well after work hours, sometimes working on Saturdays to catch up with work I didn't do on a Friday because my granddad decided to have an event, because you don't get to choose when your life falls apart. But luckily, this pharmaceutical company has been very kind to me. And as long as I put the work in and I prove that I can do it, they haven't given me that much hell. So I'm in a very good position there. But for my family's sake, I've spent considerable time and money surviving without the government. And, like stockpiling, non-perishable resources. And I know for a fact someone out there, like some veteran out there, some old elderly person in a nursing home that's probably about to fucking close because they're about to lose their subsidy in their rural hospital area. They have it way worse because they don't have a Derek that's 27 is willing to give up a piece of their life and give a fuck about their family. And I'm not trying to be selfish. I'm not trying to be cute, but because I've seen it. I've had my own friends, like people I respect, be like, I genuinely would not do what you're doing. But the reality is, I'm an only child. I don't have any people. I don't have any brothers or sisters to beg for help. It's just fucking me. Like, it's me. Like, if I break a leg, that's it, you know? And I feel like a lot of families out there, especially now, are probably experiencing the exact same thing. And if you're scared or hurt by that, you're not alone. Because trust me, I felt scared and hurt. And I'm over it now. Like, I'm over the fear. You know, all I can do is prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I'll get back to the article. You know, there's a veteran out there that doesn't have a grandson that gives a damn. There's a patient in a nursing home that will close if this federal funding is not reestablished, you know, in a meaningful way. And the fact that any congressionally allocated funds have been stopped by anyone but Congress is lawless. Like, that is against the law and it's unfair. These conditions that our government set up, I mean, it's a petri dish. It's literally setting up Americans to die. Like, Americans will die. I'm not trying to be cute. I'm not trying to be like the mainstream media that's being like, oh, fear tactic. No, like, Americans are going to die because of this. And it's not funny. I don't know how to say it in a way that can be any more blunt than that. And I'm not fucking okay with it. Because, like, whether I agree with your politics or not, I don't think you don't deserve to die because I don't agree with you. You don't deserve to die because you didn't vote for the people in charge. And I don't think that's how it should be. So I really don't care how many times you voted for Trump or his Republican colleagues or any of these assholes in Congress. But, like, this government shutdown should be the proof you need. Like, let's just talk about it for a moment before I get into my ending bit. The reason that they wanted to shut the government down is because the Republican Party in Congress wanted to take away your health care. Full stop. They wanted to take away subsidies for the Affordable Care Act. You can argue that you don't want Obamacare, but let's be honest, a majority of Americans are directly or indirectly connected to the Affordable Care Act. And whether or not you use Medicare or not, your rates are going to go up if these subsidies go away. And a lot of folks, a lot of people in red states specifically, will not have access to medical care if that doesn't happen. So the Democratic Party decided to shut the government down because they saw that this was untenable. Folks would go into medical bankruptcy. You might have heard folks like independent Bernie Sanders say this. I know it gets pushed to the wayside because he's been saying this for a long time. But there is real implications to why they shut the government down this time in 2025. Here's the problem. The Trump administration and House Speaker Mike Johnson, they got a bunch of folks to say this shutdown is the Democratic shutdown, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, what I saw them do is threaten the American people with starvation in the form of cutting SNAP benefits because they did not want to pay out SNAP. Because they did not want to capitulate on the ACA benefits, they simply chose to use starvation as a political tool. And I don't think that's right. Forget what you think about the government shutdown or why it happened. I don't think that's right. And it's infuriating. They don't give a fuck about you. And when I say they, I'm being very specific. The Republican Party of 2025. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about your family. Even if you voted for them, because they're willing to threaten you with starvation, they're willing to threaten you with medical bankruptcy. I don't think they give a fuck about America, and I don't know what it's going to take for me to convince my neighbor of that. I want to believe it's not too late, because this shit's not normal. This shit is not legal, and if it makes you feel crazy or angry, you're not alone. And you're not experiencing Trump derangement syndrome or psychopathy, I don't think. I think you're experiencing empathy, and we really need to hold on to that. My name's Derek, And hopefully Everything's a Spring will return in its normal fashion as soon as I can feel normal myself. Later, y'all.